First off, I want to welcome everyone. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedules. And I do, even though it's been many years since I've been a law student, and I don't care to tell people how long it's been, I do remember the time constraints that it imposed upon me. So I do thank all of you for taking some time out to listen to this presentation. I do want to thank Christina DiMatteo, Serenia Feynman, and the entire membership committee for putting on this presentation. I think you will find it to be not only very enjoyable, but very helpful in hearing about the experiences of some young attorneys. I am the current chair of the Pennsylvania Bar Association Family Law Section. What that is a statewide section of the PBA, the Pennsylvania Bar Association. And the PBA is one of the largest organized attorney entities in the U.S. It has roughly 19,000 members. There are 8,600 young lawyer members and roughly 2,200 law students who are members. Membership is free to law students. So I do encourage all of you to take advantage of the membership in the PBA. It does offer many benefits, including e-mentorship programs. There is access to the PBA Career Center for 2Ls and 3Ls for when you are looking for that all-important first job. There is refinancing of student loan debts, and we know we have those, and the interest rates are going up. So there is some assistance through the PBA to get refinancing through SoFi. There are discounts available through the PBA for the Kaplan Bar Review and some other items. So look into your membership in the PBA and take full advantage of those benefits that are available to you. You will find them to be quite important as you finish up your law school career and you begin your career as a practicing attorney. So we, the Pennsylvania Bar Association Family Law Section, is a section of the big bar, the PBA. And the Family Law Section is a statewide section that is comprised of family law attorneys who practice throughout Pennsylvania. And I will put this plug in for the Family Law Section. I do hope all of you who have an interest in family law, and that's why you're here today, that you do become not only members to the PBA, but the Family Law Section, because it is an invaluable tool for networking. You do get to know people across the state outside of your little area in which you practice. So it's important to know and find out people how they practice in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Harrisburg, where I am situated. I am a partner in a law firm here in Harrisburg. I have been practicing nothing but family law for 22 years. I have been a member of the Family Law Section for that entire time. And I can tell you that it has dramatically assisted me in my practice of law from day one. That is why I've thought it important to become an officer in the Family Law Section. And I do encourage all of you to become actively involved in the section. What you will pull from it will assist you throughout your entirety of your practice here in Pennsylvania. Again, as law students, I would encourage all of you to take advantage of the Joanne Ross Wilder Scholarship Fund that is offered through our membership committee. And if you want more information on that, we do have that available to provide, but it does offer assistance to law students who want or have an interest of attending our biannual meetings. The Family Law Section has meetings in the winter time in January, and in the summertime. The winter meeting typically is conducted somewhere in Pennsylvania, not necessarily. This year in January, the winter meeting is here in Hershey. So we do encourage all of you to come and see firsthand what the section has to offer to all of you as you again begin to navigate your career in the Family Law Section. The the summer meetings, I should say, are typically done out of state at more of a vacation type destination. Next July, my summer meeting will be conducted in Lake George up in New York at the Sagamore. This past July, Helen Casal, who was our immediate past chair, who I believe is actually on here. I think I saw her name. She had her summer meeting up in Newport. So we do try to provide destinations that encourage people to tack on some vacation time with that, because again, I will say this, in the practice of law, it's important that you take time for yourselves. You will be inundated with clients and you will be inundated with work. But if you don't take time for yourselves and continue to enjoy those things that make you human, whether it's exercise, whether it's music or whatever, you will probably be burned out pretty quickly in this practice. And I think Christina and Helen and these other attorneys on here will probably concur with me that if you don't have a good work-life balance, this practice of law, any type of practice law, can eat you up. So make sure, I encourage all of you to continue to enjoy those personal things that you find important in your day-to-day lives. So with that, again, I will again thank Christina and Serenia and the membership committee for putting on this fine program. I will allow Christina to identify our speakers today. But again, thank all of you for taking the time to enjoy this presentation. Christina.
Thank you so much, Darren. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina DiMatteo. I'm an attorney in Blue Bell, Pennsylvania. Obviously, I practice family law, and I'm one of the two co-chairs of the membership committee, along with Serenia Feynman, who's also on this Zoom with us today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the background about the scholarship program that we have for law students, which facilitates law student attendance at some of our meetings. I'll give you all the details about that and walk you through it in just a minute. And then we have with us two former scholarship recipients who I will introduce, and they will talk to you about their experiences with the scholarship program and how it impacted their careers and their lives. But I will get to them in just a minute. First, I'll tell you a little bit about the section and about the scholarship program. As Darren said, we have two meetings a year. One is in January, one is in July. And our January program, as Darren said, is typically our meeting that's in Pennsylvania. That's usually the one for which we offer law student scholarships. We don't usually offer them for the summer meeting, which is a travel meeting. Sometimes there are exceptions to that, but for this year, we anticipate offering our law student scholarship for the January meeting only and not for our July meeting. Our January meeting this year, as Darren said, is being held in Hershey, Pennsylvania at the Hotel Hershey. It's running from January 13th to the 15th, which is a Friday to a Sunday. As we mentioned, we have two separate scholarship programs that run simultaneously. We have the Law Student Scholarship Program, which I'm going to give you all the details about. We also have a scholarship program for lawyers. And I mention that specifically because it is for lawyers who are young or new to the practice, lawyers who are in solo or small firm practice, lawyers who practice in public interest agencies or government agencies, lawyers from underrepresented counties, or lawyers who are faced with financial or other hardship. It's important for you to know that because we find a number of our law student scholarship recipients actually come back and do take advantage a second time of the lawyer scholarship. So they're not mutually exclusive, and just because you come in as a law student doesn't mean that you couldn't apply again as a young lawyer and possibly take advantage of the lawyer scholarship as well. So let me talk to you a little bit about the Law Student Scholarship Program. The purpose, obviously, is to encourage law students to attend our meetings, become familiar with our section, make connections with our members, and become a part of our community. In order to help you do that, what we offer is the scholarship, which covers the registration fee for the meeting. So that would be waived for you. That's a value for a section member. We typically pay about $495 to register for the meeting. But if you were a scholarship recipient, that would be free for you. That registration fee covers your attendance at all of the CLE programs that weekend. It covers your attendance at the Friday welcome reception and at the Saturday cocktail reception. And usually one of those receptions can at least function as your dinner. Sometimes the other one you might need to supplement with a little bit of a meal, but for one of them, you can probably figure that's your dinner. It also covers your lunch on Saturday. Typically there's a luncheon on Saturday, as well as your breakfast on Saturday and Sunday. On top of that, we also give you a travel stipend, which is a reimbursement-based stipend. And that is, we reimburse you for your travel and lodging expenses up to $650. We really try to make it so that you can, as little as possible, go out of pocket for this meeting, and be able to take advantage of everything that we're offering.
And
We
Christina,
also-
if I might
Sure.
add, Christina, the room rates at the Hotel Hershey for our section is $189. So it's a very good price for the Hotel Hershey. They are $189 a night.
Right. And so and that's great. And we've recently increased our stipend just a bit. I think it was $500 previously. We upped it to $650 to really try to give you a little bit more coverage of the travel expenses. If you were a recipient of the scholarship, we provide certain benefits that are specifically for the scholarship recipients. There's a welcome reception. Even before the receptions that are part of our meeting, right before the Friday night reception, we offer a reception only for scholarship recipients, where you can come, you can meet other law students, other scholarship recipients, meet with like a smaller group of the attorneys, a subgroup, so that you start to make connections from the moment that you get on the scene. Before we kind of throw you into the big cocktail reception, you're already meeting people and know people when you walk in. We assign you an attorney mentor that you make contact with before the meeting as well as at the meeting, and that person really can be your point of contact throughout the process of the program, as well as in a lot of cases after the program is finished, they can be an ongoing point of contact for you and a reference point for you. Obviously, you have the opportunity to attend the CLE programs that we're offering throughout the weekend. That's encouraged. And we offer one CLE session, at least we did last time, and I know we're planning to this time, offer one CLE session that is offered specifically for law students and young lawyers, something that deals really with the nuts and bolts of what is it like to practice family law? What do you need to know? What I would say from a personal level is that the networking that we offer as part of our meeting really is invaluable. And I don't want you to take my word for it. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from Chelsea and from Matt, and they're going to tell you exactly how that networking worked for them. But it's as Darren said, to echo what Darren said, my membership in the Pennsylvania Bar Association has been really a central focal point of my career. If I needed to make a job move, if I needed questions answered, certainly the people that I have met through the Pennsylvania Bar Association would be the people that I would be networking with. So the question you're all asking is, Christina, this sounds great. How do we apply? There are 3 ways really to get the scholarship materials. Hopefully you guys have them. Your law school should have made them available to you, so you may already have the scholarship application. If you don't, please feel free to drop your email in the comments and I can email it to you, or they're available on the Pennsylvania Bar Association website. And what I did before this meeting started in the chat, I put that link up, so that link is there. The deadline for scholarship applications for the January meeting is November 18th. So you would need to get your application in before then. And I also put an email for Pam Kantz at the Pennsylvania Bar Association. She can answer any questions you may have. So you certainly can email Pam, and her email address is in the chat as well. I know Darren spoke at length about some of the benefits of being a member of the Pennsylvania Bar Association, so I'm not going to reiterate all of the things that he said. I will say that if you register, typically what we do, if you do submit a scholarship application, we will sign you up for the section for Pennsylvania Bar Association and the family law section, since it is at no cost to you. But I would encourage you to do it yourself. And the reason that we encourage you to do it yourself is because you can, as you go through the registration process, you will see all of the other sections and committees that you're also able to join for free. If we do it for you, we're just going to sign you up for the family law section because we don't know what your interests are. But if you do it yourself, you can really take a few minutes, go through the process, and you might decide, yeah, I want to join the family law section, but I also have an interest in labor and employment law or some other area of law that is covered by our sections and committees, and you're welcome to join those as well. Again, there's no charge for law students to do that. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn to Chelsea Christensen and Matt Gomez, who are here with us today. I'll introduce them each separately. Chelsea is a graduate of Penn State University undergrad and the Thomas R. Klein School of Law. She is a former law clerk for the Honorable David R. Workman of the Court of Common Pleas of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. and she's currently an associate at the newly established family law firm of Boyd and Early. We also have with us Matt Gomez. Matt is a graduate of the University of Texas Austin undergrad and the Temple Beasley School of Law. He is a former law clerk for the Honorable Daniel J. Clifford of Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas. And Matt is an associate at Hangley, Aronchik, Siegel, Pudlin, and Schiller in the family law department. So Chelsea, I'm going to turn to you first. Can you tell us a little bit about how you first heard about the Law Student Scholarship?
Sure. So I first heard about the Law Student Scholarship through my career service office at Drexel. If anybody here goes to Drexel, Liz Dunn in Career Services, she is who approached me about the scholarship. She certainly knows about the scholarship, and she's a very good resource for this program as well as just general PBA involvement.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences with the Law Student Scholarship, like when you did the program, where you did the program?
So I did the program twice, which Christina referenced about how people do it sometimes as a law student and then as an attorney. So the first time I went, I believe was my 2L year. I went to a meeting in Lancaster. So it was the winter meeting in Lancaster, I believe in 2016. That was the first meeting I went to. At that meeting, I got a mentor. That mentor's name is Missy Boyd, and I kept in touch with her. And then I went to a meeting in winter 2019 while I was clerking for Judge Workman. That meeting was in Pittsburgh, and I kind of reconnected with Missy. I stayed in touch with her, and I was hired as her associate in May of 2019.
Okay, so that it sounds like that mentor relationship really was critical for you in facilitating that, not your first job, because your first job was as the law clerk in Lancaster County, right? But then that secondary job after you left your clerkship.
Yes, yeah. So it was instrumental for me, particularly because I clerked in Lancaster County. And so trying to come back to Montgomery County, there's not very many Southeastern Pennsylvania lawyers who go to Lancaster. So all the connection I was making while clerking was with Lancaster, Lebanon, Dauphin County attorneys. But I grew up in Montgomery County. It's where my whole family lives. So Darren, no offense to the middle of the state. I have love for the middle of the state, but that's where my roots were. And so it was, just critical for me to have connections to attorneys in Southeastern Pennsylvania. And the PBA is the only way to make them, right? Because otherwise, I was involved in the Lancaster Bar Association, but again, that's county specific to that county.
Right. And that's one of the beauties of the Pennsylvania Bar Association family law section, is that because it is statewide, you do have resources to network across the state, whether that's for jobs or to make a referral for a client or any number of things. You can make those connections statewide.
Yeah, and sorry, Christina, not to cut
Go ahead,
off,
Chelsea.
but so the networking is so important. It's so critical, but I also think that substantively attending the programming was really important for me to identify, is family law something that I want to do? My experience is Drexel. That's where I went to law school. So I don't know about other law schools, but we had 1 or 2 family law classes, right? So you go to law school for 3 years, you're taking all of these classes. And if you want to do family law, your option is 1 or 2 classes to figure out, is this what I want to do? And you're learning general things, right? Like community property, which doesn't exist in the state of Pennsylvania. So it was really helpful to go to these meetings and see, okay, this is what Pennsylvania family law practice looks like. This is what my career would be, what my day-to-day would be. And I think that that's really important for somebody who is interested in family law.
Absolutely. And that makes sense. While Chelsea's talking, I just got a message from a couple people that they didn't see the information in the chat. So I'm dropping it into the chat again. Hopefully it's going through, but please feel free to let me drop a line again if it's not coming through, and I will do this a different way, but for now I'm just copying and pasting back into the chat. Okay, so thank you, Chelsea. I'm going to turn over to Matt for a few minutes. Matt, can you tell us how you first heard about and actually I'm going to interrupt myself. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat and we'll try to answer them as we go or at the end. Matt, how did you first hear about the Law Student Scholarship?
So I actually heard about the Law Student Scholarship through my clinical professor at Temple, Sarah Katz. So I was involved in a family law clinic that was housed in Philadelphia. They would help low-income litigants kind of go through their either custody or support process. But I initially was kind of reserved about applying for this scholarship. You know, I applied, I think, in my 3L year, and I was like, look, I kind of want to go into private practice. I know what I want. And I was like, what is this kind of scholarship going to help me for? Sarah Katz really pushed me pretty hard to like apply for this, knowing that the networking opportunities for me to get a job was insurmountable. I mean, I was going to meet so many people. I was going to be able to talk with so many lawyers, judges as well. And, you know, I applied and you know, got the scholarship, and it was again invaluable with the kind of resources and the people that I was able to network with.
That's great. And so when did you do the scholarship program, Matt? When and where? Do you remember?
Sure. Yeah. So I did it as my 3L year first. I believe that was the winter meeting of 2020, like right before the pandemic hit. And I did it again as a law clerk as well. But with my 3L year, when I applied, and this is why I think that the scholarship opportunity is so important. It was getting a job. You know, the all important, I think Darren mentioned it, the all important first job. So when I had actually applied, I think it requires you to submit like a resume as an attachment for the scholarship. And I didn't know this at the time, so now you're going to know. The Serenia Feynman was actually sending the resumes to different judges at the time that had requested, you know, information about applicants. And so I get an email, like, I don't know, a few days before this meeting from Judge Clifford, like, hey, I'm going to be at this conference. I got your resume. Come find me. I was like, what? This is a surprise to me. Okay, sounds good. And I ended up, you know, meeting him there, talking with him, and he was like, come back for a more, you know, formal interview, and I ended up getting that clerkship with him. So, you know, just kind of putting me in line with some of those contacts was integral.
And then I think when you went the second time, Matt, you actually did some work in advance to network. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So part of my clerkship, I got to know a lot of the, in quotes, players of the game in family law as they're coming in and out of court, getting to know them a lot better. So when I was seeking a job outside of my clerkship, I knew sort of who I wanted to work for or work with. So right before I applied to that, or after I applied to the scholarship, I actually sent out letters to various firms that I knew I was going to be interested in. And I told them, you know, I'm going to be at this winter meeting. If you're going to be at this winter meeting, you know, let's talk. When I did go to the winter meeting, most of them recognized me because I sent the letters, and I was able to, again, talk with a lot of the attorneys there that I was interested in, and including Helen Gassell, who was on here earlier, who's a shareholder at Hangley, Aronchik, Siegel, Pudlin, and Schiller, as well as my boss. And that's who I ended up talking with, her and a few other partners there, about getting that job. And we had sort of a more informal sit down, you know, over drinks, you know, nothing like super stressful. And they invited me back for a more formal interview and got another job. So it was just kind of just snowballing as far as the connections I was making during this process.
And the beauty of the family law, the Pennsylvania family law community, is that if you could get your first job, like if you can get that first job, the reality is you'll start to make the connections and everything comes much more naturally. But it is so hard to get the first job without sort of that foot in the door. And I like to look at the family law section meeting as a possible way to get that foot in the door.
I agree. And sort of echoing what you and Chelsea were saying, like, I mean, Christina mentioned this. I had went to my undergraduate in Texas. I'm originally from Texas. When I moved up here, it was for law school. I knew nobody. I knew no lawyers. It was me. That's it. So whenever I wanted to sort of get to know family law, get to know the attorneys, this was the perfect opportunity for me to do so.
That's great. So Chelsea, I'm going to turn back to you. When you attended the program, did you find that it helped you to learn about the practice of family law? And if so, how?
Yes, absolutely. I feel like I shouldn't admit this, but most of what I know about the protection, so right, Pennsylvania has what's called PFAs, and then they recently, and I guess recently is not accurate, it was like 7 years ago, they enacted the protection from sexual violence and protection from intimidation statute. Almost everything I know about that statute, I learned at the family law meeting that I went to in winter of 2016, like the first meeting I went to. I mean, yes, I still read the statute, but like really my introduction to that was at that meeting. And it was just such a good presentation. I took really copious notes, which I then used in my clerkship because we had a couple PFIs that came through when I was with Judge Workman. And I think at that time, this was like 2016 when I first started with him, he hadn't seen one before. So I actually used like these notes I took at this winter meeting to help me in my research when I was a clerk. But that's just like one very specific example. But I think generally it just helps you to really understand the practice and the breadth of the practice. You know, when I was in law school, I felt like I kind of got a little bit of heat from my peers because I wanted to be a family law attorney. Like I knew I wanted to be a family law attorney, and people were kind of like, "Oh, that's not a real lawyer." Like, "Oh, you're going to be like a glorified guidance counselor for adults." Right? Like that's kind of what I would get in law school versus my classmates who want to do like big PI work. Like they were real lawyers. And when you go to these meetings, I think it can be really validating that like this choice you're making is very real law, and it's a demanding career, and it's really a lot more than just like hearts and flowers, you know, guiding your clients through these hardships. It's just a really comprehensive practice. And then once you're in it, there's so much you have to know, like taxes, real estate. I'm going to an IEP meeting on Friday, so I'm like now learning about special education law. It's just, and that meeting really helped me to open my eyes, like, okay, this is a lot more than kind of, I think, what its reputation might be in like the ivory tower of academia.
Yeah, and actually in the beginning, when you first attend these meetings, I mean, you'll sit through some of these sessions and like just the amount of information that's put before you is phenomenal. You know, I always say you don't know what you don't know. And the key with coming to the Pennsylvania Bar Association meetings sometimes is learning what you don't know and what you need to learn. And so early on in my career, I would go to these meetings and you would hear so much about complex compensation when it comes to calculating child and spousal support and alimony, or business valuations, or, you know, a lot of the psychological evidence underpinning custody evaluations and how to use that information in court. I mean, this is not stuff that you just pick up naturally off the street. You really have to work at it. And attending these types of meetings is really helpful in doing that. Matt, I'm going to turn over to you. What about you? Have you found that the program and the Pennsylvania Bar Association has been helpful to you in learning about the practice of family law?
Definitely. And I think just briefly, I want to mention kind of just what Chelsea was touching on, but the volume of attorneys there as well, and the number of like applicants that are there kind of puts things a little bit into perspective as well. Like there's hundreds of attorneys and judges alike there, and there's a handful of you guys. So, you know, that sort of puts it into perspective of like you getting into this practice and you kind of learning about family law. There's, you know, other people here that are interested in doing so. But for me, you know, the substance that I enjoyed kind of from these meetings, and Christina touched on it earlier, it's this program about being a new lawyer. You know, when you're in law school and maybe even a little bit in a private practice, it's all new, unfamiliar territory. You're like, I don't even know, you know, what I'm supposed to do next. Like this is all very overwhelming. But the panel of attorneys who were there talking about what it was like to be a new lawyer really sort of showed that these anxieties and these fears that you may have in being a new lawyer is common, and almost everyone has them. It's not, and it takes time to sort of get over those kinds of things, but also identifying, here's what you can do as a new lawyer to sort of step over that threshold and figure out, how do I best, work under these circumstances. So that was extremely helpful, just kind of showing the do's and don'ts of what it's like to be, and work in the profession of family law. And the panel was amazing. So I'm so glad that it's coming back again, because that was extremely helpful. And if anything, just like affirming, the kinds of things that you may already feel as like a law student or a new lawyer. Just like, this is just unfamiliar to me, and I'm learning, and so is the rest of everybody in this room. So it was a really good panel.
Yeah, and I'm really glad to hear Matt say that, because I know Serena and I both worked on putting that panel together, and we were really trying to provide information that new lawyers and young law students would need. Things like, how is compensation calculated, and what are what are the partners looking for in your work product, and what are the pitfalls of being an associate in family law? And we were really trying to put those nuts and bolts out there to give the attendees, a bird's eye view on some of the things that you need to know, but aren't always easy to learn, actually. Chelsea, I'm going to turn back to you. What would you want people to know about sort of just the value of the program?
So I think one thing that is really important to understand is that the family law section is a really active section. And it's a section where the lawyers all really care. They care about the quality of these meetings. They care about the substance of the programs. They care about the experience. And they really care about section development and continuation. So I can't underscore to you enough that if you go and you're a scholarship recipient, you will be very warmly welcomed. And the attorneys really care that you're there. So it's not like you're going to go, I'm sure as a law student, because I did some of them, not related to PBA, of course, but you go to some of these networking events that your law school tells you to go to, and it's like no one talks to you, right? And you stand with your friends and you're kind of like, this feels so awkward. I don't know how to approach anyone. It really will not be your experience at all at the meeting. You will be approached by lawyers, potentially, by judges, although I can't really speak for them. But it's really a welcoming experience. It's really worthwhile. And I really can't stress the substance. Like, the programming was really great. It really helped me. I used some of the information in interviews to kind of show an edge, like, hey, I took more than one family law class in law school. I know this little tidbit about family law practice, which I think was helpful. And but yeah, I just think in terms of the networking, know that it's not on you. It's not like we're saying, oh, it's a great networking experience if you go and you really put yourself out there and you do all that heavy lifting. There's so many attorneys who are excited that law students are there. And so I just think it's a great weekend.
Thank you. And we do work hard at that, Chelsea. I'm glad again to hear you say that. And I think one of the things that really helps with that feeling is that reception, that smaller reception for the scholarship recipients in the beginning, because it's so hard to walk into a room cold. I mean, when you don't have a group of friends that's already in there, you walk in there and it's like, okay, I guess I'm just going to walk up and hope I'm introducing myself to someone friendly. But because you come into the smaller reception first, your mentor will be there. You will already have made some contact with your mentor beforehand, or they make contact with you, even if it's just by email. Someone will grab you and say, hey, your mentor is over there. We'll kind of get you situated. And you have about it's 45 minutes or so to do that networking before you go into that first meeting. I think that's really helpful in bringing you in and making you feel welcome. Matt, what about you? Anything you want to say about the value of the program?
I mean, if it wasn't said already, for me, is getting a job. That's, I feel like I can't stress that enough. I got the jobs that I have because, I was a recipient through this scholarship program, and not only, obviously getting a job, but how the program sort of helped me get there kind of, as you said, I was set up with a mentor, and they started like introducing me to people that I didn't know, or pointing out people that I did want to hear more from, but I just didn't know, who they were. How do I approach this conversation? Like, how do I even go about it? So, not only just sort of like kind of Chelsea was saying, just breaking into this group, but also just breaking into this group for the ultimate goal of getting a job. I mean, that's sort of, why you're in law school, is at the end of the day is to get a job. And this is the perfect opportunity to do so.
Right. At the end of the day, that's the gold ring, right? For everybody.
Right.
All right, guys, I think that's what we have substantively. We have a few minutes open for questions. If anybody wants to raise your hand or drop a question in the chat, we could take a few minutes if there are any questions left. Feel free. Well, if there are no questions, then I want to thank you all for coming. I really want to thank our panelists, including Darren, for taking the time to be here today, as well as Chelsea Christensen and Matt Gomez for sharing their experiences with us. I really hope that all of you consider signing up, submitting your application. If the information didn't come through in the chat, please drop your email into that chat or email me directly. My email is cdematteo, DEMATTEO @dematiolawoffice.com. I'll be happy to send you the materials, or they are available on the website. So thank you all very much. And I really hope to see you in January in Hershey.